Let's let it rip. Hi, I'm Dan Schinder.
And I'm Stephen Schinder.
That's Bill Bruford.
Yeah, some of you may have heard of him. Little known drummer, I guess.
With a few other guys.
Yeah.
And this is Yesshift. What is Yesshift? Why are we here? What are we doing? What's happening? What's going on?
Well, why are we here is a very complicated question that I don't think we'll have time to answer, but Yesshift is a vlog and podcast, a father-son thing. You're the father, I'm the son, for anyone who's maybe new and unfamiliar.
Or just listening to the audio version and can't tell. Because I think I look older than you, right? A little? Not that you look old, but some people think I look a lot younger than I am.
Okay.
Wait. Someone recently, like the other day, told me, they said, wow, you have kids that old? And I said, well, how old do you think I am? She said, I don't know, 42? I was like, can I like mow your lawn, paint your house, and buy you a car? Because I'm 59 for those who don't know. So that was cool.
Yeah, and funny enough, this is episode 59.
59, whoa. You know what that means, Steve?
What?
The next one is 60.
Yeah, that's true. And incidentally, I think age 59 is also when Bill Bruford decided to retire from public performance. So yeah, it's a lot of weirdness there.
Wow. Interesting. I have to have Venja run those numbers. She does numerology, you know.
Right. But yeah, we talk about Yes members. And this episode is part of our little series where we've been talking about each member's first solo album since being in Yes. And this one is Bruford's Feels Good to Me, which sometimes I misread as Feels Good to Be Me for some reason. I don't know why.
That's your album. One thing about this mini-series is we are not going from artist to artist to artist to artist to artist without other episodes. We've been kind of interspersing episodes from this mini-series in other things, interviews. We had Steve Hackett on recently. We have had Bill Bruford. We had Craig Blundell, who plays with Steve Hackett. We've had Mike Tiano on twice. He's going to be back with us again in September.
We also had Dave Kersner last week.
Dave Kersner very recently. And we have others coming. So this is something we revisit from time to time. Steve Hackett thinks he's got a cool thing going with Genesis Revisited. And we've got solo albums revisited.
No, but it actually really is a great thing.
It is, yeah. His is the real deal. It's amazing. But this is a fun theme because Steve and I don't talk about it ahead of time. Like, whoa, what do you think of that album? We save it for the show. So that it's all authentic and organic and just natural, like a natural conversation. We'd like you to chime in on that too. So if you're a fan of Bill Bruford and Bill Bruford's Feels Good to Me album, chime in. The questions that Steve and I ask each other are for you as well. This is your show too. So Steve, you want to begin with personnel? And when it came out, all that kind of stuff?
Okay, yeah, let's begin with the context of when it came out first, and then we'll get into personnel later. So interestingly, this came out in January 1978. I saw somewhere that said the 22nd and somewhere else that said the 6th, but in any case...
How does that happen? Maybe in different markets or something.
Yeah, maybe, but
US, Europe, UK, and Wyoming.
Wyoming. But yeah, it recorded August of 77, released January of 78. Out of the 70s solo albums we've talked about so far, this is actually the largest gap between member joining Yes and member putting out their first solo album, you know?
Yeah, because it came years after he left Yes as well, which is unique.
6 years. 5.5 years, I guess, after he left. Yes.
Do I remember correctly that every other member has put out the solo album they put out since joining Yes? They were still in Yes when they put it out, correct? Except for Alan White.
Peter Banks Peter Banks put out his solo album after leaving Yes.
Oh no, Alan was in Yes. What am I saying? Right. So Peter was
Oh,
after.
yeah, I thought that was a joke
No,
that
I
you
was
made there,
actually
like,
had a senior brain fart moment.
oh, okay. But yeah, Bill put this out a few years after leaving Yes.
So
And
wait, let's rewind that fact a little bit. The only two Yes members to put out their first solo album since joining Yes, who also put it out after they left Yes, were two of the very first original members. That's a unique kind of trivia question there too.
Right, because Tony Kaye didn't put his out until like last year, which is an even wider gap, you know?
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's right. And he was an original member as well. And none of them like floating fruit in jello.
Right. So Bill had been up to a lot since leaving Yes. You know, he did a few King Crimson albums before they sort of disbanded for a while. So this is before they reformed in the 80s. He appears on Fish Out of Water and Beginnings and does some other little things here and there.
That's Chris Squire's album and Steve House. For those who might not know, that might be younger or just under a rock or something, or dumb.
Right. Or
I'm kidding.
you like saw this video thumbnail and you're like, what's this? And you don't know like what any of this is. But
Right.
But yeah, and then he tours with Genesis as like a as like a touring drummer. So he's not an official member. He's doing the job. And
The first year that Phil Collins sang lead on stage and Bill played most of the drum parts.
right, yeah, and that was for what ended up being the Seconds Out live album.
Part of it. Chester's on most of it.
Right, yeah. So this album came out. So by the time this album came out, Going for the One had come out in July of '77. Seconds Out came out that October. Pink Floyd also released Animals way back in January of '77.
And this is for context, folks. Steve likes to tell us, and I love it, context of what was going on musically, especially in the prog world at that time.
Yeah, and ELP released Works Volume 1 and 2 in March and November of '77. Rush released A Farewell to Kings in September of '77. And this one I learned I looked up more recently, but outside of the prog world, but still like very much a huge thing in the music world, Elvis Presley passed away in August of '77. Actually, 45 years ago today, as we're recording this, interestingly enough.
I remember where I was. Do you remember where you were? Oh,
not here.
Yeah, I remember where I was. That's one of those moments. I remember where I was when the news came out. Wow, what a trip.
Yeah, and I mean that's just a huge legend right there, and he has like such a legacy and an impact on other musicians.
There might not be rock music without Elvis. There might not have been the Beatles and everything that came from the Beatles, including Pink Floyd, who had the crossover genre of psychedelia with the Beatles, you know, in those very early 60s years of Pink Floyd. And Yes tapped into that, of course. So Elvis, wow. You know, I have a picture of him right here with his band leader and first drummer, Bobby Morris, who I interviewed the first year of Drum Talk TV. So, wow. How many years ago? 45?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
The nail came off.
Yeah, so this album was very much, you know, I would say, so I looked in Bill's autobiography again for a bit of context, and he mentions how when he toured with Genesis, he had like kind of this yearning that like he wanted more input as opposed to like, you know, contribute more to music, because at that point it had been a couple years since he'd been like
creative.
a full member of a band, you know. And I'm just gonna read this thing briefly that I thought was pretty funny. It says, "The solution was staring me in the face to write my own material and run my own band to play it." So, you know, that's like a very simple solution. You know, if you want to like do your own creative stuff, like make your own thing. Right. And so and this is in chapter 5 of his autobiography. He goes into like how he recruited like these other guys, like, which I guess we'll go into personnel. Gets Alan Holdsworth. There's a funny story of how he traveled across the Atlantic to the U.S. to get in touch with Jeff Berlin, and
I was going to talk about that. Yeah,
his family's probably thinking like, this person's like a big rock star. Why is he recruiting our son?
Exactly. And it was Pat Moraz who turned Bill on to Jeff Berlin, and Jeff was quite young. Was he like 19, 21, something like right in there, right?
Somewhere around there. I'm actually looking that up real quick. So he was born in 53, so he would have been, so not that young. He would have been 24, actually.
Okay, that's still young.
25 when this album gets released. But yeah, so let's go into personnel. So we mentioned Holdsworth, Jeff Berlin on bass, Holdsworth on electric guitar, obviously, and Dave Stewart on keyboards. And weirdly, when he mentions, because there's also a vocalist on a few tracks on here named Annette Peacock, and in this book, he doesn't really say much about her. He describes her as a fleeting visitation, and so that makes me think, oh, did she just come in, record her vocals, and then job done? And then, I of course, later she was in that, she was with them in that old Grey Whistle Test promo where they played "Feels Good to Me" and "Back to the Beginning," and also in that '79 "Rock Goes to College" concert, which people can find on Bill Bruford's YouTube channel. So, but the lack of info about her, like in the book, was kind of perplexing. I guess maybe because she's not like a full member like these other people, but it's just a bit odd because she's kind of an enigma. It's like I want to know more about her, Yeah,
what'd she do before and since, and was there a rift, and that's why over the years she hasn't gotten the credit, or was he being literal, saying a fleeting visitation because she's just on 3 tracks and that was it, the end of that?
Yeah, it was probably that. I'm like looking at her credits. She did some stuff in the 60s with Paul Bley, in the 70s as well. And then there's a huge gap. She works with Paul Bley again in the 80s and then 90s. And in the 21st century, there's credits like Cold Cut, Nels Cline, Eric Plunday. And I don't know if this is like a full list of...
Is there a schizoid man in the 21st century?
Oh, I see, because King Crimson.
And moving on with personnel, we've also got the famous John Goodsall on rhythm guitar, John Clark on electric guitar, Joe Frazier live. And the production is by Robin Lumley and Bill Bruford, tape operators John Brand, Colin Green, Stephen Short, engineered by Stephen or Stephen W. Taylor, and equipment technicians Peter Reville and Mick Rossi. This is really an interesting album. I'm eager to dig into it and give my take.
Yeah, I'll just read the whole track list real quick, and then we'll get into that. So on side 1, we have Beelzebub. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Back to the Beginning, Seems Like a Lifetime Ago, parts 1 and 2.
Both.
2 different tracks there, yeah. As Sample and Hold. And then on side 2, we have Feels Good to Me, Either End of August. Wow, and we're in mid-August. How about that? If You Can't Stand the Heat, I sure know I can't. It's been too hot over where I am. Springtime in Siberia. I wonder if there was like a true there.
I wonder if it's in 5/4, like Siberia.
And then final track, Adios a la Pasado, which is Spanish for Goodbye to the Past. And apparently on a later release, they added a bonus track of a live version of Joe Frazier, which is on the 3rd Bruford album, Gradually Going Tornado. But yeah.
I remember that album.
Yeah, but yeah, 10 tracks on this one. Those are what's on each side.
We should cover 3rd albums by everybody.
Yeah, well, I have a bit to say about the next two albums after this, after we do like our full discussion of this
Okay.
first one. But yeah, so for you, what stood out to you this? Well, I guess first I should ask, what was your first time listening to this album? Like, give us some context for that,
Okay,
Dad.
way back when it came out, I heard it on vinyl. And there's a few things I want to say about it musically and production wise. Number one, I think production wise, it's light years ahead of any Yes members' solo album up to that point. I think
Oh
production,
wow,
yeah, I really do. And I think
that's high praise.
I really mean that too. And I also think that tied with Steve Howe's album Beginnings, it's tied with that for most adventurous as a solo album after joining Yes as a first solo album, and the most adventurous if you add in the fact that it's of a genre that he was not known for. Steve's is basically an amalgamation of everything you knew him for
Yeah.
with more of him in it, if you will, with all the different weird stringed instruments, more slide guitar, playing with different sounds. You know, all of that. It's just more and more. It's Steve amplified, no pun intended. But Bill's, if people didn't really know him of that genre because maybe they didn't dip into other work he did outside of Yes, it was like, what is this? And there's actually some parts as I listened to it again today for the first time in years that remind me of not just what one of our fans said, and we'll read some of those comments, that it's, you know, early traces of what became UK. And of course, Alan Holdsworth was on board. Not only that, I hear traces of Romantic Warrior by Return to Forever in there, even to a degree that if I didn't know better, if someone said, hey, listen to this passage of this song, this is an outtake of something that didn't make it on that album, I might have believed it, other than the sound of Bill's snare. But Lenny White's snare is also extremely staccato, but more of a muted tone, not nearly as crisp. But other than that, I think my point is that the crossover of those bands' sounds and his genre that's just so departed from everything else most people knew him for, that puts it way on top as the most adventurous solo album. And when I say adventurous, I don't just mean musically, literally, but adventurous as, okay, I've done this. People know me as this, wearing stripes. Now I'm going to go wear paisley fractals with polka dotted hats, you know, like just something totally different. He really put himself out there. And it like it brings your eyebrows way up to either where your hairline is or where it would have been. It's like, whoa, it's very impressive. I really, really love it. And for all intents and purposes, other than Ms. Peacock, an instrumental album on top of that. Now, Pat's was too, right?
Right, but there
But a
were a
different
couple
genre.
of vocalists on a couple of
Right.
tracks at least.
Right. So I just think the whole thing is an anomaly compared to everybody else's. And when I say the most adventurous and all that, I'm not downplaying anyone else's album. I love Chris Squire's album. I think it might be one of the most basic of all the first Yes member solo albums, but I love it. No, it doesn't mean it's bad. I'm just saying complexity, musically complex. I think Bill's is on top and Steve's is next.
Interesting. Yeah, you mentioned the UK thing, and this was recorded shortly before UK recorded their first album. So it's kind of like they were pretty much parallel with Bruford and UK.
With Holdsworth
It's
there, yeah, especially.
Yeah, my first time listening to any of the material from this album, I think I might have heard at least a couple tracks back in 2008 during eighth grade. I don't remember if I listened to the entire album back then. And I, of course, listened to a few Bruford tracks earlier this year in preparation for the interview with him that we did. But yeah, this time around was the first time that I knew for sure that I listened to the album from start to finish. And it is very different from the other solo albums of this era we've talked about. It's very much a jazz album.
Very fusiony, very.
Yeah, because Patrick's album Story of I had some fusion and stuff on it, but I could still hear traces of, there's like some proggy moments where I was like, I could see bits of these becoming like retrofitted into a Yes album, whereas this feels completely detached, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I hear traces of, I'm playing some of it in the background, couldn't help myself. That's Beelzebub live, 1979. But I hear traces of Mahavishnu Orchestra, Jan Hammer, which came later, but Jean-Luc Ponty, like I said, Return to Forever. Jeff Berlin's bass playing is superb on this album. It's like, no wonder Patrick referred him, and no wonder he was a perfect fit for Bill. And I saw Jeff Berlin perform with ABWH because that's when Tony Levin was out with hepatitis, and I saw them in San Diego, your hometown at the time, and met Jeff, and it was great to meet him. It was really, I think I still have his phone number. But really, really superb bass playing, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's give just a moment of this a listen. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Let me crank it up for a minute here. I just think they're all so on top of it, and it's not improvised music. I mean, that might have been somewhat improvised because it's live, but in general, a lot of the stuff you hear on this, you got to remember, they planned all this shit out. This is pretty brainy music.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to mention about Annette Peacock is that she has a different demeanor than I'm used to seeing from other singers like John Anderson and people like that. She is kind of I don't know, she has this, I don't know how to describe it. It's like she seems like so calm and collected and cool, and it's like with a flick of a wrist she could like just unleash the power of like just singing these few words here type of thing. I don't know if that made sense.
It does, yeah. What's with your microphone today?
Oh, it's like turning and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, I'm just like hanging on to it right now.
That's right. Do you have favorite tracks that stand out for you on this album?
Yeah, Beelzebub is a great opener. And I will say it was kind of hard for me to hear some of the words and Back to the Beginning, but it has a nice flow to it. I think side 2 is where it gets a bit closer to the type of stuff I'm used to hearing, a bit more keyboard stuff. Feels Good to me has like such a triumphant feel to it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it also reminds me of old school video game music.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I love it for like both of those reasons. I think Adios a la Pasada is also a great ending to it all. And I don't know if maybe they intended this, but how inside one we have Back to the Beginning, so it's like going back to the past sort of thing. And,
yeah.
But
and then goodbye to the past.
Yeah, in this final track, it kind of makes one think where it's like, maybe it's possible to go back, but you should be able to say goodbye to like
and look
what
forward
was rather than dwell. Yeah, look forward.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, mine, Beelzebub for sure. Love that track. I like Seems Like a Lifetime Ago, parts 1 and 2. I like those a lot. Feels Good to Me, of course, the title track. There's just some really good music on here. For a first solo album, like I say, it's very adventurous. It really shows, I think it shows his musicianship much more than in Yes. And I know that we always talk about how do we think having been in Yes influenced his first, their first solo album. This is the first one where I can honestly say I'm not sure it influenced it at all, if much, musically, but I'm sure I know, of course, his acumen in recording and the business came from being in Yes, but I don't hear influences of Yes in his music. It shows me even more the influence his playing and sound had on Yes when he was in the band.
No, yeah, I agree. I don't think there's really much of a musical influence. If anything, the influence had to do with trying not to just sound like Yes. This is
Right.
very much the sum of his experience with other bands, and Genesis was kind of the tipping point where he was feeling like really hungry and wanting to do his own like thing where he has control and is able to put out his a lot of creative his own creative influence, I guess you could say.
Yeah, because he's in his late 20s at that time. He's feeling creative, yet he's playing in a band where the music's already established. He's just on tour playing it. It's like, how much input could you have other than, yeah, do some of your own fills here and there, change this beat there. You can't rewrite something when you're, you know what I mean? So he must have been kind of bursting at the seams, and it fucking shows in this album. I mean, when he said it was staring me right in the face, wow, he just reached in and went for it. I love that.
Yeah, but being in Yes also perhaps influenced the personnel because of his connections with the different members of those early Yes lineups, and then being on their solo albums and meeting Patrick, and then Patrick referring to him to Jeff Berlin. So, and I suppose they could have possibly bumped into each other in the music scene some other way if things had been different, perhaps.
But even with that, that doesn't mean there'd be a connection without Pat being the hinge.
Right.
Yeah, they could have met and all of that, and without Bill seeing him play, but they met at a function, or there's still the absence of Patrick saying, "You gotta hear this guy."
No, because Jeff was across the Atlantic. I was thinking like maybe Bill and Patrick could have met some other way, but
yeah.
I think being in Yes may have like made that easier.
Gotcha.
I guess
I misunderstood. Yeah.
So yeah, like his experiences being in Yes had this sort of influence where he was trying actively to, well, maybe not consciously, but just doing something different that was very not Yes, I guess you could say.
And I was just thinking from your previous note just now that Bill and Patrick, I think, are the only Yes members to collaborate on a project that was not a solo album by either of them. And here's the thing. So that was 82 or 3, right? Because I saw them live at the Beverly. Okay.
Perhaps.
They did 2 albums,
I don't know.
music for piano and drums, and I forgot the name of the other one. But here's the thing. Do you think that how would they not have at least brought up the idea, hey, should we have bass? Should we invite Jeff? I mean, his fretless playing, his jazz playing could have fit perfect. I wonder if there was a conversation there and why they would have decided not to. Other than to leave all that space where it's just 2 percussion instruments, one more melodic than the other in the piano, for something very unique. Plus, they get paid more just splitting it 2 ways. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there because if you think of the time context, it was not even 10 years after this recording, and him and Jeff had done other I don't know. I just find that interesting and what that would have been like.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, and in terms of live play, at least a few of the tracks on this album got some live play in '79. I'm looking at the Rock Goes to College playlist, and it includes Sample and Hold, Beelzebub, and Back to the Beginning, and Adios a la Pasada. So Yeah, at least a good handful of tracks from this were played live, and maybe some others were played like at a later point, like apart from this, like perhaps. But yeah, it's really cool. Like when you look at these videos, you can see how really into it he is, and how it really feels like this is his domain.
Groove. Yeah.
Know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also we've talked about this before, but one of these Rock Goes to College vids begins with like one of the announcer people getting hit in the face with a pie or something. It's really funny.
I forgot about that too. Just mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm really glad that these are on his YouTube channel and that they look and sound good compared to like other things of this era that don't look or sound as good, you know?
Yeah. Check that out, folks. Check out Bill's YouTube channel. They're constantly adding stuff to it. And before we go to some fan comments from when we were promoting this episode, are there any comments on Yesshift or Drum Talk TV?
I don't see any at the moment, but there are like some reacts at least.
Go ahead and chime in, folks, but we can go to fan comments that we accrued already.
All right, yeah. But before we do, let's answer this question first.
Okay.
How yes is it, in your opinion?
Oh, I don't think it is whatsoever. I really don't.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, at best, it's maybe like 5% for nothing.
And and that's only because it's his signature sound. And I think Bill would be pleased to hear this, that there's no traces of yes other than him and his sound.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about how Alan's album Ramshackle didn't sound very yes. So this sounds even less yes than that, because like on Alan's, at least he has John and Steve on a track. And even a song where I think it's like the keyboards kind of remind me of the beginning of Machine Messiah, which would come later on, but Feels Good to me feels like the least yes out of these solo albums we've talked about. But it's great.
It is. If you're not familiar with it, folks, get it or put it on, stream it, and then come back and give us comments either on this post, or you can write us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com, or comment on our Facebook page where this is live and it will archive as well.
Yeah. But with that, let's go into comments that people have put when I shared the post around.
I'll start with Kevin's. Kevin O'Neill says, wonderful, my favorite of his solo albums. And it's his first. And, you know, I've mentioned this before. I don't remember who said it, but I remember hearing, I'm pretty sure it was a musician that said the hardest act to follow is your own. So sometimes you just blow it out of the water so well, like he did, that this is the favorite for a lot of fans, even though it's his first. Others have to sort of find their way, and they morph, they develop, you know, they age into their groove, if you will. But for Kevin, this was his favorite. I think that might be the case for me as well.
Okay. And from how do you pronounce this?
Casey Ferla de Figueroa.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if the Big Ava was just K, but in any case, they say amazing record. And then Craig really says a jazzier version of UK. I've always liked this recording.
I agree.
And then we get Mike Tiano saying, my thoughts felt good to me.
Nick Evanoso says, a great album. Bruford is one of my favorite drummers ever. I concur.
Yeah, and Steve Bonafine says, one of my all-time favorites. And Doug Curran says, great album, great music, great musicians. So yeah, a bunch of comments that are pretty much to the point, but pretty positive. This seems to be well-liked by a good amount of people, it seems.
Yeah, and I want to play another bit of a track that's a sample and hold from.
Yeah, play a sample of
But
it.
yeah, let's do that. This is really cool. I love how this starts out. No one has ever, or I don't think will ever, sound like Bill Bruford. Listen to this. Oh, where's the volume? Let me turn that up. Sorry. Here we go. I had it left from where we did the fade.
All right.
Check this out. That sound. Jump ahead a bit. It's just so good. I forgot to mention when we were talking about the tracks on the album, I love the contrast. This is probably the biggest contrast away from everything else on the album. Would you agree? Stylistically, I mean, at least the way it starts out, it's just hard, and he's doing that rock groove. It's like, hey, wait a minute, where's the jazz? And then it kind of fits back into this total fusiony proggy stuff.
Yeah, for this live version, he added the like extra drumming
Drum solo in the beginning.
Yeah, the drum solo. But yeah, when I listened to this live version, I thought to myself, the sound's kind of different. Is it the same song? It's like, it feels like it's maybe because of like how it was recorded and maybe because of some additions, it sounded pretty different to me. But yeah, it just showcases the talent that's there.
And for really drummers and those who know the instrument, you could totally hear his rototoms, what are called rototoms, those toms. You totally hear how they sound. Just love it. Awesome.
Yeah, and do you have anything else to say about this album before I say a little bit about what I think of the couple after?
No, other than I'm going to keep this up for a while because I'm really enjoying it. And it's, as a musician and as a drummer, I was going to say inspiring, but what really goes through my head as I listen to it is, man, I got to practice. I got to really work on my, because I don't do that. I don't work on my craft. I don't do that. I'm not there. I'm not gigging. I'm not doing sessions anymore. I play for fun. I do Dan's almost daily vlog on Drum Talk TV. I play some of my favorite music. I might break it down, talk about it, but I'm not working on my strokes but this makes me go like, man, this is just so freaking good. I want to play better.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's a great blueprint to look out for inspiration.
Absolutely.
I guess is the word.
Absolutely. So what do you think of the two following ones? And I love Gradually Going Tornado as well.
Okay, yeah, because one of our viewers, Carl Coppage, in the lead up to this was like, I kind of wish you were also talking about the other two. And I was like, I'll listen to the other two and give a brief comment on what I think. And I think the general consensus is that One of a Kind is a step up. And I definitely agree with that.
And in what way?
I don't know, like, so I listened to each of these with my earbuds, and just the overall soundscape, it felt so well put together. Like, it just felt elevated and maybe even a bit more, like, parts of it felt a bit more like prog, which is maybe why I liked it a bit more. Hell's Bells is just, it starts off with a bang, and
remind me, please, for context when you refer to the soundscape? What's the time context? We're looking at the first one that came out in 79, basically. When was this other one? I'm trying to think of might have been different production-wise.
Yeah, the first one came out 78. The second one came out June of 1979.
Oh, so not that far away. And same producer, different producer? Robin again?
Let's see. It says it lists Bill Bruford as the producer.
Interesting.
Where I'm looking. Yeah. And I also get the sense that the first album is listed as a solo album, whereas I guess the ones after are more band albums, but still with his name on it.
Yeah.
So utilizing some of those same musicians, but as under a band moniker now.
Did he dominate the writing credits still? This is like a whole new rabbit hole.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, he even had Eddie Jobson as an additional person.
Really? He was in Yes.
Yeah, he played he played violin on Forever Until Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the third
I don't remember that. Interesting.
Yeah, and the third studio album, Gradually Going Tornado. I think people generally agree that this is like third place among the three.
Is it more commercial, if I remember right?
I don't know if commercial is I don't know, because it's hard for me to tell when something that's jazz / prog rock feels more commercial, but it does feel like there's a bit less of something to my
Your microphone.
ear. Yeah, I know. I noticed, but it felt like there's a bit less of something to my ears, and I'm not sure what it is, but it does feel a bit more like a mix of just kind of like a hodgepodge, but not a bad hodgepodge, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Now I got to listen to the other two. Thanks.
Yeah, I still think it's good, but it's not quite on as high of a level as the first two. I don't think, but yeah, it's still worth listening to. But maybe others would probably like it less than I do. But yeah, it's definitely third place among the three, I would say.
Interesting.
Yeah, and of course, after that is when after that and after UK is when King Crimson comes back and Bill does more cool weird shit with them.
Yeah, my favorite lineup actually.
Yeah,
love that lineup.
Yeah, so I think this was an interesting period to revisit in his career, because when you listen to the first Bruford album, especially because of how jazzy it is, you can definitely tell.
Sorry, I tried to bring up the image and I clicked on the wrong thing.
Oh, what'd you click?
The image, but before it was resized, I forgot I already had it in the tray.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, the first album, it's like you listen to it and it's like, oh yeah, he's definitely on the path to someday create Earthworks, his jazz band that begins about a decade after his first album. So yeah, do you have anything else to say about Bruford before we go into a few somewhat related news items?
Not other than I'd love to have him on again and talk about other aspects of his career. I'd love to ask that Patrick Moraz question about, was Jeff Berlin ever considered, or was it always just going to be the two of them? I was surprised when he said, and I don't think he said this on camera. Before we started, we were talking to him, and I said, and we'll geek out on drumming gear. And he said, well, it may surprise you that I'm really not into it that much. And I'm thinking, what? Everything you've done, you've had a different setup. And I found that really intriguing. So I'd like to talk about the different setups and what were some of the inspirations behind some of the weird setups. Was it strictly ergonomics? Was it just different way of patternly thinking and rearranging things in strange places? Or, there's just so many things I'd love to still ask him. One interview was great, and it was about his box set, which covers a lot of ground, but I'd still
Yeah.
love to just have more conversation with him and talk about what's wrong with floating fruit and Jell-O between you, Peter, and Tony.
Yeah, there are lots of aspects of his career to talk about, but yeah, so going into news related to him, sometime within the last couple of weeks, I got an email from the Cherry Red Records newsletter, and his Earthworks album, which I believe came out in 2004, titled Random Acts of Happiness, is getting a reissue and comes out October 14th, so people can go ahead and pre-order that from Cherry Red Records. And kind of related in the sense that we're talking about Yes drummers, Alan White, who of course passed away a few months ago. There have been nice tributes to him, and again, go to miguelbase.com, and if you want to submit something to the Play for Chris and Alan thing, you can. And we've talked about how Apple Jam is coming up in October, but there was also a tribute by an Eagles tribute band called Kings of Hollywood. They performed Instant Karma as a tribute to Alan, which was really nice. And this is another, this is kind of related to Why Hunger, and I'll just read what this says. So on Sunday, October 2nd, 2022, members of Yes and White, White being Alan White's band that he had, will come together at the Paramount Theater in Seattle, Washington, to celebrate the musical life of a legendary drummer, Alan White. The bands will be joined by special guests and will play selections from Alan's 7-decade career, including music from John Lennon and George Harrison, Yes, and more. And this is hosted by Alan's longtime friend, Bob Rivers. Proceeds from the show will benefit Why Hunger. And I'll go ahead and post this link in the comments and also put in the show notes for the podcast.
Cool. And while you do that, and please put it in the Drum Talk TV comments as well. While you do that, I want to remind people, you can write us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com with comments, show suggestions. You can also listen to us if you follow podcasting rather than watching us live or watching a video archive on Facebook or YouTube. You can follow us on anchor.fm/Yesshift. You can watch the live broadcasts like this one if you're watching it on facebook.com/Yesshift, and our YouTube channel where Steve is slowly populating the new channel with everything we've done. 59 episodes and about 24 news desk reports. That's youtube.com/Yesshift or user/Yesshift.
I don't think we have the user thing. Just
that's right.
Type Yesshift into the search bar and you'll find us really quickly.
Yep, absolutely.
And
join us.
Yeah, and next time on Tuesday, the 23rd of August at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, we'll be continuing this series and actually jumping forward about a decade, talking about Jeff Downs' first solo album, The Light Program.
Who loves floating fruit in Jell-O, go figure.
Yeah, so that should be interesting. I saw a website describe it as future jazz, so I guess we'll have to see if we agree with that.
Cool.
But that should be interesting, and let us know your thoughts if you have any on them.
Yeah, absolutely. We will take you out with some more of Live from 1979, Park West, Sample and Hold, Bill Bruford. Check this out. Have fun. Don't hurt yourself. Dance to it. Thanks for following what we do, folks. We will see you soon.